welcome to a post-game edition of the Access Vikings podcast. We're here at US Bank Stadium. The Vikings just lost to the Falcons 22-6. I'm Emily Leiker, joined by my Minnesota Star Tribune colleagues Ben Goessling and Andrew Krammer. And guys, it was not the home opener that the Vikings envisioned for themselves, that I think the fans envisioned after last week's fourth quarter comeback where J.J. McCarthy leaves the hero, leaves the promised prince for the rest of the season. Ben, just what's your biggest takeaway from how this game unfolded tonight?
Well, I mean, this home opener felt like one they expected to be, not a coronation, it's too early for that, but a celebration of a new quarterback, Adam Thielen coming back home, Jared Allen. It was meant to be sort of this festive evening, and they had set the whole thing up after the win against the Bears. But that fourth quarter against the Bears kind of allowed you to forget about a lot of the mistakes that led to the point where they needed that kind of a comeback. And the NFL has a way of slapping you in the face when you feel too good about yourselves. Not that I don't think they came in high on their own supply necessarily, but it does have a way of when you make the kind of mistakes that they've made, and certainly made tonight, you don't always get the storyline to go the way that you want it to. So for as charged up as this place was, and I thought early on it was as loud as we've heard it.
Ooh, yeah.
10 years of this stadium, it's hard to believe it's year 10 already. But the only other time that comes to mind for me is like the 49ers game last year and then the Texans game. But that early sequence where it's false start, delay a game, they're causing timeouts. I mean, this place sounded like it was ready to explode, but then Bijan Robinson takes the air out of the place, and then the Vikings' own mistakes did a lot of that and turned a lot of the cheering into booing, and then the booing into apathy, where this place was half empty by the middle of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, to your point, Bijan Robinson started with those 3 carries for 47 yards on the opening drive, and that was after that. The fans were still into it. They didn't give up right away, certainly, but the fans did their jobs and the defense did their jobs more than the Vikings offense today. Because I don't know where you go from here with J.J. McCarthy in this offense. The line was completely banged up. They lose Ryan Kelly in the first half. They lose their backup left tackle, so they're starting their third-string left tackle by the second half. So how much of this do you place on McCarthy? How much of this do you place on just the parts that they didn't have, the coaching, all of it? Because I don't think you can fail this badly where it's 6 points, 6 sacks, 4 turnovers without, as O'Connell says, all 11 having a part of it, but all 12 including him too.
Yeah, and I think Kevin O'Connell certainly does not want – I mean, he knows that the easy thing to do is going to be to put it on the quarterback, to say, well, it looks like this guy isn't all he's cracked up to be, nice draft pick he got, that kind of stuff. He knows is going to be part of it. Yeah. But I think on some of the things we saw, there's a point to be made about all of the other pieces not working terribly well, which we saw some of that on Monday night as well. But particularly with the protections tonight, there were a number of those where you have free runners coming through. And O'Connell said the last one, the strip sack where the rusher comes through free, said that was a miscommunication. We thought Brian O'Neill probably had a chance to make a play there. Didn't get a chance to talk to Brian O'Neill about it afterwards, but it's kind of what it looked like from our admittedly untrained eyes. But, yeah, a lot of miscommunications across the board and a lot of things that they did not do terribly well tonight.
Yeah, Michael Juergens afterward put it on himself that Brian O'Neill gets called for a false start. Walter Rouse, the third-string left tackle we're talking about, gets called for a holding that negates an 18-yard run. There were just so many things piling up. And as we mentioned, the 6 sacks, that some of that, to the trained eye, I'm sure they're going to look at it and see that McCarthy had a hand in some of that too, I'm sure.
Yeah, and probably setting protections. It's a larger effort in those things than we probably always appreciate.
And, this is going to be the first full week for the Vikings in terms of, game schedule. They get a full week this week, but to have those guys in concussion protocol, I mean, you won't know about Ryan Kelly until late in the week. You won't know about Justin School until late in the week. Yeah. As of the end of last week, I don't know that we feel that Darrisaw is going to be back next week. I think that's still very much day by day in terms of how ready they are to put him in. And so that offensive line, there's a lot going on there that is contributing to what happened tonight. And
well, I think the Darrisaw thing too is you're seeing the absence of that. I think when they are not able to set their left tackle and kind of say you're on your own with the pass rusher on this side, whatever it happens to be, whether it's a blitzer or just an edge rusher that you're playing in a one-on-one anyway, when you can't do that and you're not able to allocate help other places, I think that is showing up. Not that I expect them to change their timeline with him based on the results of the first 2 games, but man, I do feel like you're seeing the absence of Christian Darrisaw show up in a pretty significant way.
And it's important to remember too that they're better suited. They were better suited last year to deal with his absence because Kwesi made the aggressive move to trade for Cam Robinson. This summer, Darrisaw got a lot of the reps during practices, at least in training camp. Once they got to that point, Justin School was just jumping in and out. He was somebody they paid to come in and be this spot starter, but he's not Cam Robinson. And Cam Robinson gave them at least adequate starter level reps. And so now you've got your backup in there. Then you had your third string backup in there in Walter Rouse. It's just a tough spot to be put in. And then with Ryan Kelly going out, it messes up the cadences, as we talked about. It messes up the protection setting. And you got your rookie quarterback back there. I mean, we just wrote a whole story about how Ryan Kelly sets this table for the quarterback, and then suddenly that table gets wiped clean.
Yeah, I mean, you had a great story on that today, but it, in this sense, shows when you talk about the things that he does, it has a way of showing how big of an absence it is when he's not there. Because they signed him with the purpose of you have a veteran center that can be kind of that companion, that aid to a quarterback, a young quarterback, like he's been for, Andrew Luck certainly in his career. Phillip Rivers obviously is older, but he can be a nice component, a nice complement to a quarterback. And so when you don't have that all of a sudden, it only compounds the problem.
Yeah, he did that for Jacoby Brissett, for a lot of guys in Indy. Emily, we were there in the locker room when Justin Jefferson got to talking about this evening. He was awfully patient for a star wide receiver who's got 3 and 4 catches in 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of kept on coming back to this idea that all 11 guys need to do their job, that this is McCarthy's second game. And, yes, there were things that he did say, it wasn't a perfect game for McCarthy, which anyone with eyes could see. But he also said, these are going to be learning moments for him, and they have to be learning moments for him. There are things in games, like guys going down and just protections changing, that you cannot replicate in practice, no matter how hard you try, no matter how detailed you're practicing. And so, this just has to go in the memory bank and be something that JJ pulls from in the future. But yeah, I thought Justin's demeanor was very indicative of the work we've kind of talked about him doing all off season, just kind of growing as a leader on this team and being very accepting of, hey, yes, I may be a superstar wide receiver. I mean, just the other day he was like, I'm the best receiver in the league.
Yeah.
But he is willing to kind of be like, hey, look, this team has some things it needs to go through. He did say he didn't expect there to be growing pains, but he was also talking okay, yeah, there are growing pains. We're in it. We know these are happening.
Yeah, he had said basically, look, this is just our second game. He kept repeating, just let's be patient. It's just our second game. And I had said, well, did you expect this kind of stuff coming in? Well, no, we didn't expect. We expect to come out and execute and do our jobs and all that. But he's trying to walk that line of a team captain, a star player who's got the youngest quarterback he's ever had in the NFL, Justin Jefferson with his quarterback, that is. He's never had to deal with this kind of true growing pain before. Kirk was ready. Sam was a lot more ready than we all thought.
Right.
And with McCarthy, boy, it just has not looked that way so far.
No, there's a lot of time in the seat, to use the fighter pilot term, that J.J. McCarthy does not have. And there's things where when protection issues pop up or things just get you have a starter go out, you have things just kind of go awry. You have a quarterback who doesn't have the experience to maybe speed up everything and improvise in the same way. Not that you want to have people freelancing all the time, but he's not probably able to work to the backside of a progression quite as quickly. And just things you would expect a veteran quarterback to do that can cover up some mistakes. You're not going to have that at this age, and I don't think they expect him to have that. But what it does mean, and this was the point that Kevin O'Connell kept coming back to, is you have to have everybody else execute. I mean, they were very intentional about the way they built this offense. The whole plan was to put a veteran player around J.J. McCarthy in just about every spot that they could, with the exception of Donovan Jackson, the first-round pick. But they wanted as many experienced players around their young quarterback as they could possibly get, for the whole point of kind of trying to ease the transition into this for him. So when you have that and those players aren't executing quite to the way that they would expect to have that happen, it shows up because you don't have the quarterback, at least yet, that can cover up for those things.
Well, and speaking of, let's talk about a sequence there early in the game where they get down to the 2-yard line. And Ben, you were at Kevin O'Connell, where I believe he talked about this. gets down to the 2-yard line, calls a play action pass that McCarthy ends up dropping, but he gets it off, gets an incompletion, and then on the following play, he gets a delay of game penalty. What did O'Connell say about just that whole sequence that then inevitably forced them back off the goal line?
Yeah, the play pass, I asked him about that. He's trying to pitch it to Jordan Mason, and basically he's trying to fake a pitch to Jordan Mason, keep it, and then they thought they would have had Justin Jefferson. They thought the timing would have sucked in the Falcons defenders to the point that it creates an opening for Jefferson off of the play action. But it's kind of a complex play fake. Again, this is me editorializing here a little bit, but it's one of those things where you're expecting a lot of things to go right on the goal line. I mean, first and goal from the 2. They don't run Jordan Mason, who I think had 16 yards on previous 3 carries in that drive before that. And, rather than just bowing up and try to pound it in from the 2, they go to the play pass there. And if you have a matchup that works, great. But sometimes it feels like, why not just be a little more take the easy shot. Don't try to hit the green in 2. Take the one that just hit the ball down the fairway.
Well, in another instance, kind of that, not exactly, but late in the game is their 3rd and 1. Yes, they're backed up in their own territory, but they're 3rd and 1, and they opt for the deep attempt to Jalen Naylor, like way downfield on the left side, which Andrew and I were looking at a graph that was shared on social media where passing chart, you see JJ doesn't hit anything on the left side of the field pretty much, or at least didn't tonight.
That's been an issue going back to college. I mean, people have talked about that with him. Just when he goes to his left, he's had issues with that.
Goes incomplete, and then it's 4th and 1. They punt it away. That was one of those moments where we heard boos in US Bank Stadium, either for the quarterback or for the head coach and that decision making there. I think there's probably a mix of both, but there are just those little moments where it's like, are you protecting the QB? Are you trying to get something going bigger than you need to? What's the right solution there? I don't think they've found yet.
Well, and the other thing that just comes to mind as you mentioned that, how many snaps has the quarterback taken with a lead at this point? Any? I mean, other than the ones in the 4th quarter against the Bears when they make the comeback?
Yeah, I can't think of it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
they've trailed every other quarter.
Right, and they've run 98 plays or something in 2 games. So there's a lot of things that are not conducive to getting a young quarterback off to a good start. I mean, when you're playing from behind, and some of that is the offense, obviously. I mean, the defense has played well enough. It's not like they're giving up tons of points and making him go into this kind of drop-back game. Some of it's been the offense, but it's the penalties, it's false starts, it's some of the procedural stuff. That is not going to help any of this become easier for the young quarterback.
No, and one of the most frustrating things I'd imagine for O'Connell is that these slow starts have included 3rd and shorts that they're failing on. These are not 3rd and 11. This isn't we can't run the ball, we're getting behind the sticks. This is they're getting into 3rd and short, and they're taking sacks. They're not running the ball. They're not completing passes when they call pass plays. And if McCarthy has the option for a run, they're getting into pass plays in those scenarios, and they're just not moving the ball. So they seem to be they came into this season, as you said, Ben, intentional to set up a team that would get him in those spots to make it easy. And yet those easy plays, quote unquote, that are supposed to be are just not getting made. And it'll be whether it's Brian O'Neill seemingly missing on a free runner, or guys dropping passes, or guys getting holding calls, whatever. Just these little things pop up that if your quarterback is not going to be that steadying presence for you, you can't have everyone else fall apart too.
No, it's just hard to do it. And we saw McCarthy in the locker room afterwards. He was going up to teammates and I think saying, hey, we'll get him next week. I mean, there was, I think, a lot of that stuff where we've seen it. He's pretty intentional about trying to go to guys and kind of set that steadying presence from a locker room figure. But in terms of just on-field experience, it's hard to expect him to have enough to be the voice that everybody can kind of rally around. And he's had moments, obviously he had that moment in Chicago where he did that, and people praised him for that. But it's not that stuff as much as it's just I've done this long enough that I understand the whole operation of things, and I understand how to get through progressions quickly, and everything you'd expect a quarterback that's been around for 10 years in the NFL to be able to do. He's just not going to have that yet. There's no substitute for the time that you need to get those things in the NFL.
No, and Emily, there's one thing that stood out to me from Jefferson where he was trying to say all the right things and was saying all the right things, certainly about this offense, and I no reason not to believe him. But at one point, I think it was you actually, Emily, you had asked him, what have you learned about this offense? I thought his answer to that, was interesting because he said basically, I'm still learning.
Yes, yeah, he said, that's a good one. I think I'm still learning about what this offense is or something like that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, like, I didn't expect him to be like, oh, yeah, X, Y, and Z after 2 weeks, I know. But I was curious, like, if there's some takeaway these 2 games have generated for him. And it doesn't feel like there's kind of a consensus about something yet.
But Wes Phillips went into this season, I remember his last availability before week 1 was to talk about how we're still trying to find our identity.
Yeah.
What are we good at? And to your question, Emily, to Jefferson, he probably can't answer that because what are they good at? You haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of series in the Bears game where they have to kind of just play a drop back game.
Yeah.
That was the best they've looked. And some of that is probably the Bears are sagging back in coverage a little bit. I mean, you see this happen a lot in games where people aren't sending the house as much or the coverages are a little softer because they're trying not to just give up anything over the top. That's where they've looked the best, but that's not normal game flow type stuff where you say, yes, this is an identity for this offense. I think there is still a lot of that's very much to be determined yet.
And I will say that we haven't seen this offense press forward in either game until the 3rd drive when Jordan Mason gets some consistent carries.
Yeah.
Which, again, why did they wait until the 3rd drive to put Jordan Mason
It is
on
interesting.
the field?
Yeah. And Aaron's earned that right? To be the starter, to be the guy, but he's now hurt and he has not.
Something we see next week. I mean, that may take care of that.
Yeah, you're right. He hasn't produced, though, either when he's been on the field. We haven't seen that same guy that we saw last year, which is interesting, behind what should be, for the most part, when they're healthy, better blocking. But again, we have not seen that collective together too often.
There's a lot of things that aren't how they would want it to be at this point.
What do we make of what the defense did tonight? Because I thought they obviously fared pretty well. Their red zone was great. Atlanta scored on 3 of the short fields that they got, kicked field goals, so that ended up being the difference when it was 15-6 there late in the game. Eric Wilson said afterward, he said, we got a lot of guys in this locker room who take this personally, and they ran on us. They kind of felt like they weren't putting on the offense. They felt like Bijan kind of took the game from them.
Yeah, Josh Metellus was pretty forceful about what he said afterwards, too.
Yeah.
And basically we can't put this on a young quarterback. We can't use that as an excuse. We have to make the stops that we expect to be able to make. I mean, I think they gave up 123 yards of offense in the first quarter, and the next 2 were like 103 in second and third quarter combined. So they did show up, and the pass rush got home. I thought Jonathan Grenard, after getting his shoulder pulled by Elijah Wilkinson on the one where he came out of the game for a play, I mean, he came back in and was awfully forceful, was a major impact in this game again, including the sack that gives them a chance at midfield on the strip sack where McCarthy gets the ball taken away on the first play. But Grenard's sack helped set that up. So I thought the pass rush was there. I thought we saw Dallas Turner do some things tonight, but it's hard when you got to be out there for 36 minutes.
Right. I mean, for all week we were talking about how fast of a thrower Michael Penix is, how quickly he gets out of the pocket. They did land home a couple times, and the passing game for the Falcons didn't really exist. It really was just that run game. So when you're trying to pull positives out of a game like that, like the defense did show some things. Obviously, Eric Wilson punches that ball loose early in the game. Theo Jackson scoops it up. They get on the turnover board, but it's that red zone defense. It's like, if you can hold them there, like, why can't you hold them 20 yards earlier? It's kind of my thing.
Yeah, and it's just you need an offense that can do more to hold up its part of the bargain. I mean, when you're running, you have the ball for 23 minutes and change, and you turn it over as much as they did, turning it over in tough spots on the field and just not running very many plays. It's not sustainable.
No, and this was the second half of week 2, and they were down 6 starters between Darisaw, who obviously hasn't played, Harrison Smith, who obviously hasn't played, Aaron Jones, Ryan Kelly, Blake Cashman, and
Andrew Van Ginkel.
Van Ginkel as well. Yeah, and so that's not counting School, that's not counting Okuda, that's not counting some of the guys that they've had out. But injuries can't blame all of this. This offense should certainly look better in spite of all the injuries that they've had. So where do they go from here? Because Green Bay looks awfully good.
Yeah, they do.
Detroit put a revenge
on
dish on Ben Johnson there against Chicago. And then the Vikings are here with facing Jake Browning potentially next week.
Another Jake Browning revenge game. Jake Browning revenge game 2.0. The thing with the injuries, too, is as we sit here and tally them up, School, Van Ginkel, Okuda, and Kelly are all concussions, right? I mean, that's a lot of players in the concussion protocol, and they could come back from those. Every concussion is different. Every player is different. But this has been a team that's typically been fairly cautious bringing guys back from concussions. You don't see them bring players back quickly very often. So, maybe it's different for Van Ginkel and Okuda next week, but I would think they'd err on the side of giving those things some time, especially for a guy like Ryan Kelly, who I think now has had 3 in his career.
Oh, wow. Well, and they err on the side of caution with veterans just in general, too.
Yes.
Like, we see veteran guys on this team get rest days quite often. Like, I mean, this week, Ryan Kelly took, I think, 2 days of practice off. He only practiced fully on that last day. And so, like, add that on to the fact that he also has a concussion, like, he probably won't practice all week, regardless of if they think, hey, maybe he could go on Sunday.
Yeah, Michael Juergens, the backup center who had never taken an NFL snap before today, said, at least I got some practice this week.
Well, yeah, and that we've talked about the Juergens thing. If in the long term, if he can become a serviceable starter, that maybe makes the move after this year one that you can save some cap space when they're going to need to do it. But, we've got a long way to go from here to there.
Yes.
And, yeah, I mean, he's going to get opportunities at least for the time being, I think. But, yeah, you brought Ryan Kelly in here to be the veteran center, the complement to J.J. McCarthy that you so capably outlined for us in the paper today.
Yeah, we need to mention, speaking of revenge games, that John Parker Romo stole this game for the Atlanta Falcons, made all of their points, the former Vikings kicker who had the 4-game stay for Will Reichard last year. Obviously had no chance to stick here, but did well enough that a team like Atlanta picked him up, and here he is.
Yeah, 4 field goals in his first game with the Vikings, 5 in his first game against the Vikings. So
we've seen a lot of field goals in the first 2 weeks here. Will Reichard, 4 for 4 between 2 games.
Deliver us some touchdowns.
He again nails the last second first half. Like, it was almost the same sequence where the opponent goes down, gets the field goal, and Kevin O'Connell's like, okay, 2-minute offense, let's go.
Did you say it was the same route?
It was very similar. I think the route concept was very similar. He threw the one to Naylor last week for the big game that set the field goal. This week it was Jefferson on kind of that corner post
for 50 yards.
Yeah, then he split the 2 safeties. But yeah, the way they just set up the route combinations and stuff, it was very similar to what they did. And that was, it was a gutsy play to say, okay, it was, cause I think it was like 3rd and 13 from the 17. Say, yeah, screw it, we're gonna keep our foot on the gas. And that looked at the time like it was going to be a big moment in that game. If they come back, you're probably coming back to that play and pointing to that being the turning point.
Well, and I think, Andrew, you turned to me at halftime and were like, well, it's not going to be any harder for them to come back this week than it was last week.
Yeah,
so,
right.
And then didn't pan out by 4th quarter. But
and what was it, 12-6 in the 4th quarter?
Yeah. Well, because when they had the strip sack against them, they're at the 48-yard line on the first play of the 4th quarter, down 6 points, I think, with a chance to take the lead at midfield. It's like that was the opportunity to seize on. And then when you have a guy coming free off the line on the first play of that drive and the strip sack happens there, it was like, okay, that's probably it.
Yeah, and I don't want to take it too far by putting on Brian O'Neill because we do not know currently who that was on. But you don't see a team captain like him vacate the locker room that quickly, and that was a huge moment in that game.
Yeah.
This was a premise thrown around the locker room a little in terms of questions, but I guess, what does losing a game this early in the season, how does that potentially help this team, considering some of the young parts it has, considering maybe getting out some of these negative emotions or just learning how to react to something like this early versus last season? Obviously, you go 6-1. You go 6-0 and then lose then keep going. But just getting one of these out of the way early, so you know how it feels like, so you maybe have a little bit more tape where you're like, okay, this was on me. I need to learn. What do you think the benefit is of that?
Well, I think it's curious. I'm curious if J.J. McCarthy has ever lost a game in September before in his career, because he had 1 or 2 losses in high school. One was a state championship game. And, well, I think 2 might have been state playoffs, and then I think it was 1 in college, and that was in the college football playoff against TCU. So I don't think he's ever lost a game this early in a season. And he said afterwards, I talked to a lot of guys in the locker room that have told me this thing's a long freaking journey, and I believe them wholeheartedly. But I'm just curious for him. He has not gone through this, where you lose a game that early in a year. And we've heard players say this before, that in the NFL, it's different than college because you do understand you're going to lose games and you have chances to learn from your losses. One loss does not, sink your season in terms of trying to make a championship run. You could still do that, but it is an early taste for him of something he has not really experienced.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess I hadn't put that together. Probably is his first September loss, at least in some time. Lest we forget, too, this guy his wife or fiance just had a baby, too, a few days ago. Now, he looked very poor on Monday night before they had the baby, so I'm not putting it on that. But I am saying that he's been through a lot.
I've been a little distracted. I mean, just for good reason.
Yes.
I mean, don't turn that fans into like, oh, he's focused and like.
He was back at practice the next day.
He cares too much about his kid.
Yeah. Let's
not where I was going with it. No, I was just trying to say, like,
I'm not saying you were. I'm just.
Yeah.
Before we go there, let's not go there.
Let's just
those listening to this.
Yeah, and let's just remember that we don't know a million things that go on in all these guys' personal lives, but we did know that very gigantic life event for Mr. McCarthy that happened just days before, and Kevin O'Connell even said too, leading up to it. Like, I pat myself on the back for having kid number 4 or whatever it was, and then coaching, or maybe it was kid number 3 or 2 that he coached the next day.
Kid number 4.
Kid number 4, and then coaching the next day. He said all I had to do was stand on the sideline, and JJ has to go out there and run our game plan, do a red zone period on Friday and all that stuff that they didn't have to use too much of tonight. But we should also not forget either that when it comes to this offense moving forward, that losing doesn't give you the perfume of covering up mistakes. Winning kind of does.
Yeah, that's a good
You
point.
hear this all the time in the NFL about winning is just that great elixir, the thing that masks and makes everybody feel better about everything. You got out of Chicago feeling great about the fact that he played horribly for 3 games. And I'm not saying the coaching staff, because we know them. We heard them say, we're not overlooking these mistakes. We're coaching hard, all those things. But now I think the urgency level gets turned up. I think this kind of loss is alarming maybe to people, or the right people, to wake up and like really focus on what needs to get changed or fixed. Because even O'Connell mentioned that. Ben, you were there, so correct me if I'm wrong, but he mentioned at his presser something about like, yeah, we as a coaching staff got to really open this up and take a look at it here, and seeing as how poorly this went.
Yeah, he basically said from top to bottom, and he included the coaches. He always kind of says it starts with me, but I think he included the rest of the coaching staff in that probably a little more directly than I've typically heard him do it. So, yeah, there's a lot after 2 weeks where you could say for 7 of the 8 quarters they weren't very good. At least offensively they weren't very good. I think defensively they've been pretty good. But the procedure of it, and when Kevin O'Connell's talking about these things, he's thinking offense first because he's an offensive coach. So when it's been that rickety for 7 of the 8 quarters, yeah, I think it's going to lead to some soul searching pretty quickly.
Well, we will be following all week as coaches break down this game, as we maybe go back and look a little bit closer at some of this stuff. Thank you for listening this long about this game. I'm sure if you're a Vikings fan, it's not necessarily fun to listen to.
Therapeutic,
the
maybe?
game. Yeah, maybe it's a little therapeutic. But thank you for listening if you made it this long. We will be back with an episode on Wednesday, kind of just going through the week, looking ahead to next week when the Bengals come to town. And then we'll do our mailbag episode on Friday as usual, so drop questions if you have them for that. But that's all we have from US Bank Stadium.